We did it.
We made it. Didn't think it was going to happen.
Y'all
there for
have
a minute.
no idea how long it took us to get this set up.
We started at noon.
Yeah, basically all day.
Started at noon.
I mean, we did
Slight
break. We did break for Chick-fil-A.
Break for Chick-fil-A and cough medicine.
And cough medicine.
And Doug.
And Doug. Her dog.
And a free car inspection at Firkins.
And a tire
Shout
patch
out
up.
to Firkins.
Tire patch for free.
So it wasn't a complete waste of the day. It was just...
We had stuff in between.
It was just we thought we'd be done by now.
We
that's
would be
fine.
done by now.
Basically.
We thought we'd be Waffle Housing by now.
We would be Waffle Housing right now.
Can't talk about that.
We had some audio trouble between the right mic to use and Logic Pro bugging out on us. But we got there. We did it.
Well, we haven't done the podcast yet.
We haven't.
Technically.
We're doing it now.
We
though.
haven't even introduced the podcast yet.
Well, Wes.
It's all right.
What a good lead-in.
It is, isn't it? You know me. I'm Cal Westis, the guy that does this every week. That's me. I play Cal Kestis in the upcoming KESTIS fan film, where Cal is pitted up against Galen Merrick, aka Starkiller. To my right, we have Zach Golden, the director of KESTIS, and the AD of KESTIS, Rachel DeBiccaro.
Yay.
So,
Thanks for having us.
you're welcome.
It's an honor.
So, Zach, why don't you tell us about all your roles in KESTIS, because I know you're more than just the director.
Yeah, I mean, from the moment
Zach is just everything.
I have to process just exactly everything I did, because it's a little bit of everything, really. And that's how it's always been since I've been making films, is I'm used to being a sort of Swiss Army knife on set and just doing all sorts of different things at the same time. For KESTIS specifically, I played 2 different characters. I voice acted for 5 other characters as well. I obviously directed, wrote, produced. I even did some visual effects work. I edited the whole thing. Let's see, what else did I do? Me and Wes choreographed the lightsaber duel. I did set and costume design, concept art. I did all the concept art for the characters. I did some storyboarding with Dan. And I also shot a scene in KESTIS, so I get a little bit of cinematography credit. So a little bit of everything. And I kind of like it that way. I do like opportunities where I can delegate, but I do like the results when I'm able to sort of have my hand in all the different facets of the production. So.
Can we just do a freeze frame and then Wes will just scroll?
Yeah.
Scroll your list.
Opening title to Star
Two
Wars.
different credits.
Just
One
all
version
the
has
credits.
everybody else, and then one is just me.
Exactly.
And Rachel, so you were the AD.
Which, for those who don't know, that's assistant director. So pretty much being Zach's just right-hand person and just kind of taking all the spill of what he has going on. Yeah, taking all the spill of what he has going on and trying to get stuff off his shoulders. But helping out with his scheduling. I feel like I did a lot of just crowd controlling, actor controlling, and getting the meals, and kind of making sure everything's running smoothly, literally on time and on set, so that all you have to worry about on the day is performance, just getting what you want.
A film set
and
cannot
doing that.
function without the first AD. That's just a fact. So,
Yeah.
and me and Rachel have worked together for a long time. Just
Yeah, I was
about
gonna
every project we've worked on
How many
since
has it
2018 or something crazy like that.
I think it's pretty much always been director and AD. That's kind of
I'm waiting for the roles to switch. Although I will say,
great.
I will not function well as a first AD.
I think respectfully, I would not choose you to be my AD.
I'm
but
glad we're on the same page.
You would have many roles on my set. I definitely would have you say things, but AD, that goes to Raina. Sorry.
Sorry, Zach.
Yeah, numbers and logistics, they just...
There's
it
a
no
reason
work.
I'm hired,
It no work.
It's great. It's why I get a job.
No, one of these days you will direct, though, and I'm very excited for when that happens,
I
because
just gotta calm down on being a perfectionist about my ideas. One of these days.
it'll happen, though.
Right.
I'll be right there, ready to do something. I don't know, but
My Kit Fisto.
I'll be your Kit Fisto. The guy just in the background, offering a smile or two.
Big old smile,
smile.
all the charisma.
All the charisma.
But no, I do think for Zach and I especially, we started with literally as small as it can get with like college film projects.
Yeah, just student films.
Like just student films, and now it's like we made a feature. Basically.
Just about.
Yeah,
just
what
about.
featurette?
I mean, if you combine the foretelling with KESTIS, you'd probably have technically a feature-length thing. It'd be probably around an hour and 5, an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah,
maybe still short. I'm not actually sure what the like logistic rules are there, but still went from real rough student films.
Yeah, some of it was out of our hands.
Class projects too, And I think that's also been a fun thing is like when we first met, we were working on collaborative projects with a class of people, and it's like you don't really get to see a lot of what you can do, what I can do, and then it's like we got to get these more private settings. You're
kind of held back by the talent level of other people. In some ways, and I feel like that's kind of how you get your feelers out and network is like, do I like working with this person? Do I feel like I'm able to really grow as an artist around this person? And I don't know. I feel like every time I work with you, it feels like we're both able to really flex and do our thing.
Yeah, it's like
we have a good understanding of how we each operate, and I can attest for this working on the set of KESTIS. I mean, we shot 50 minutes worth of story in a week.
Yeah.
And there's never any point where I was thinking like, man, I hope Rachel takes care of this problem while I'm doing this. Like all I had to focus on was directing the actors and the creative imaginary aspect of the film, and you basically took it and ran with it and made the rest of it happen. And
I think part of that too is like, we've had the practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like part of it is the fact that like we've done so many movies at this point that it really felt like by the time we got to KESTIS, you and I got it like locked in. Like we got it figured out. We know how we work. Cause like, I mean, we always worked well together, but I still think there was always like just figuring out what role we both fit in the best on set, and like learning how much delegation each person should get. Also, I think was like a big thing. And I feel like on KESTIS, like we did well in the foretelling, but I feel like KESTIS we like hit it. Yeah. And I really do feel like it just went.
Well, a lot of it is because you're like doing this for a living.
It does
like
help,
you actually do this as a job.
That I'm like trained now versus
I'm
like
just,
at the
I'm
beginning.
just hanging out on YouTube posting fun videos. You're like actually in it, doing the real thing, So that certainly helps.
Definitely helps.
Yeah.
And then Wesley.
Yeah. And then there's dude, like I was thinking about gearing up for this podcast. I was thinking about I actually went through the playlist on YouTube and sort of watched all of the content we were pumping out over the months that we've been putting this together. And we're like, man, like, Wes is not an actor, and you would never think that's the case.
Oh, he's phenomenal. No, like, I remember when we were doing foretelling, I had been friends with Zach for a couple years before the foretelling, and Wes and Zach had been friends as well during that time, but me and Wes had just never met. And Zach talks about Wes and like all this stuff, and then when we did the foretelling, he was like, this is the actor, this is kind of how the project was started, is because this guy looks a lot like Cal Westis. And I'm just always very nervous whenever you're trying to make a serious project. Foretelling was a serious project. It wasn't just a little student film. We were trying to do something with it. And I'm like, ugh, whenever you're getting someone who's not an actor, they don't, this is not their thing, this is not their interest, it's rough. It doesn't go well. And I was like, Zach's a really good actor, and like this could be rough. And I did not meet Wes until our first day of shooting. And I remember just kind of being like, well, like we're doing it now. Like I hope he's good.
No going back.
Yeah, kind of. I was like, I hope this guy's good. And I've told you this, Wes, but like he blew me away. And I remember, I think I talked to you, I don't remember, but I remember just being afterwards like, this guy's never acted. Like he's really natural. And then you got to KESTIS and like, I know you said that, like, for KESTIS, you did a little bit more prep work, because you had kind of, like, you had done the foretelling, you kind of understood it, and you really prepped for KESTIS, and, like, went into the role.
Bigger project, and
you took it seriously.
With more eyes on it, too. Like, there's more going on that would appeal to more people. The foretelling is a very, like, small story. KESTIS is much larger in multiple different ways. With more people's eyes on it, like, I just wanted to do a good job.
But then, like, KESTIS came around and, like, you were even better. You know what I mean? And like you started out very good. I remember just being like, dang. All right.
I mean, I would say it's one of those situations where you reach a certain passion level for something that you don't even really have to act per se. And I think that's something we were both able to do very well. is you've played the game so much, and I've just grown up we both grew up consuming Star Wars.
Yes.
We grew up in our backyards,
daily basis.
Lightsaber dueling our siblings and pretending we were these characters that when the cameras were in front of us, it was like we're in the backyard again.
We've already done this.
We've done this a million times. Yeah. So, and I think that people who were watching were really able to. That was something that we see a lot in the comments when we put out stuff. Is like, we really liked that Zen actor. We really, this is a great Cal Kestis actor. Like people seem to really like you as a live action Cal Kestis, and I can't say that for my Joker fan film that came out. I think it was like 2018. Like people trashed on me playing the Joker and like all this stuff, and it's always fun getting those kind of comments. But it's also really exciting and reassuring when you can see people being on board with you adapting something. And I'm hoping people have a similar response to Starkiller in our film, because we are doing some bold things with this character. But I don't think really at the heart it's not too much of a stretch from why people like the character. So I think there's something for everybody, and I think we've got some really great talent in our films.
And that was like, fun fact, I did not play any of the Cal Kestis games until after we shot Kestis.
I've played maybe.
Wait, I thought you played Fallen Order before.
It was after Kestis. I'm pretty sure. Was it before? I don't remember.
I thought you played Fallen Order.
Maybe it was before.
After the foretelling, before Kestis.
Maybe it was. I honestly don't remember myself. But like, I did the foretelling with no knowledge of who Cal Kestis was, and then
I remember that because when you actually started playing, I remember you texting me and being like, "Oh, I understand.
I get it. I get so many things now." Yeah, but
Zen is such a bad guy. I'm like, he is. He's awful.
Yeah. But the weirdest thing for me was, and I've told Wes this, is like, I met Wes as Cal Kestis before like the original Cal Kestis like video game character. Yeah. And when I played the video game, I remember just being like, I'm playing Wes, and like just like having like the exact opposite viewpoint of everybody else who's gonna watch this fan film of being so like, funny. I love this character, and wow, look at this live action. I was like, I love this live action person. Oh look, he's a video game character, and I had to like remind myself that I was like, he's not the video game Cal Kestis.
It's not actually him.
Yeah, but I feel like I wasn't disappointed with that connection going the opposite way. So therefore, people connecting it from animation or like the video game to live action, I feel like they'll be happy.
Yeah,
but
I hope
that's
so.
my knowledge.
Yeah,
and I think Starkiller. I think the fans will like it.
I think he's easily going to be the highlight of the movie for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have just been hungering, like freaking chomping at the bit for Starkiller stuff. Every time Disney posts something, I'll scroll through the comments and be like, please just do a live-action Starkiller. Mm-hmm. Make those games, remake those games, do something with those games. And so I think people are really looking forward to that. I think that's easily like the highest marketing tool for Kestis is that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that was with us from the beginning. I mean, we never planned for a sequel, but when we started having those conversations, I remember like car rides where we were just kind of conceptualizing, well, what would a foretelling sequel look like? And like some of the very first conversations was Starkiller. Like, how can we introduce this character? And it was always an adaptation of the character, not like a complete adopting of everything that he is into live action. It was always sort of like, if Disney were to take this character and adapt it into their chronology, what would that look like? Because the foretelling was also designed in that way to feel cohesive to canon, and so that was with us from the very beginning. Was like, if this character existed in canon, what would he look like? How does Cal Kestis? What does that relationship, that dynamic look like? What do they have in common? What are their differences? And it's crazy because they have a lot in common. They really do.
Yeah.
Like traumatic childhood with an identity crisis later on, and I think like making him an inquisitor was just like the perfect way to be like, here are two sides of the same coin, and here's a side where Cal Kestis makes all the wrong decisions. And you could almost play Cal Kestis as his Inquisitor variant
Right.
in Fallen Order.
Yeah.
And that is Galen Merrick in canon, right? And same thing for Galen. If Galen would have survived the attack on Kashyyyk and wasn't captured by Vader, maybe he would have ended up being a scrapper on Kashyyyk or something to that effect, and ended up becoming Cal Kestis. So, it's really fun playing with those dynamics. And when it came to writing the script, it was like, okay, well, what does that look like, down to writing those beats? We can't really afford a Kashyyyk setting, so what's the closest thing to that? And so that was a really fun part of pre-production was taking this loved character and figuring out like how do we preserve the heart without going over the top. And because I think we would all love for Galen Merrick to have these bombastic powers and just destroying everything and tearing things up, and it's cool, but I mean, when you really look at the gameplay and you go behind the scenes, they only made him that powerful to make him more entertaining.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, this character is that powerful because his parents were Jedi and then he was trained by Vader and that's why his midi-chlorian count is so high. Yes, but actually no, because they made him that way so it was more fun for the audience and the gameplay more entertaining.
Which I find really funny too, because with Galen and Cal being basically different sides of the same coin, when you play Fallen Order, you start with nothing. You have no power.
Yeah.
It's the complete opposite. It's the build-up. It's the retraining, the relearning of everything that Cal had learned as a youngling, which I find interesting that those games are.
That's where my hot take comes from. And forgive me, you all, for saying something heretical, perhaps. But I think the Jedi franchise is, story-wise, is better and more effective than the Force Unleashed franchise. Because I am connecting with this character Cal on the same level as I would with Galen Merrick, but I don't feel the need for Cal to be this OP god.
Yeah.
I am perfectly okay with him being the sort of Spider-Man of the Jedi roster.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I felt as I was working on this script was like, you know what? I think Galen Merrick can pull off this same trope, that he can be on a similar power level as Cal Kestis, and we can still connect with him. Because at the end of the day, Galen experiences something that I think we all face ultimately, is this identity choice. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to? What kind of affiliation do I want to align myself with? And when push comes to shove, who am I actually underneath all the armor and the clothes that I'm hiding behind? And so that's the primary story that we put Galen on is, and ultimately what every character goes through is, who do these people actually want to be? And it's, I think fans are going to be really happy with it. But I also think it takes an open mind, because we're not doing a true adaptation of the Force Unleashed games. We're taking the heart of those games and we're inverting it, putting it on its head, and opposing it against Cal Kestis. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I do think, though, one thing, I guess for premise, I have seen the movies, big fan of the movies, watched them since I was a kid, but I would not say I'm the level of you guys where I have not like deep dived into kind of the lore and the side characters. Like if it wasn't in, the main movies that Star Wars made, I've seen the TV shows, I don't know about as much. So for me, going into making this film, I did not know Starkiller. And I think Zach just did such a good job. Like, you can sit down and watch this movie with no knowledge of Cal, no knowledge of Starkiller, and enjoy it. Because I think you didn't make it, like, you made it just enjoyable to watch. You know what I mean?
Accessible.
And it's not, thank you, yeah, like, accessible, and you don't have to have all the knowledge of who Starkiller is and who Cal is to, like, really enjoy the movie. It's just fun, and it's just entertaining, and Starkiller is such a good villain. I remember when I read the script for the first time, I was like, oh man, like you can picture him so well and the way you wrote him, and I was like, just like such a good villain. And Cal's character is just very lovable, like you said, just very easy to connect to. Again, that Spider-Man type guy that just like everyone likes and can like relate to. And so I think when you watch it, whether you have all this prior knowledge or not, like, you just did a good job adapting all of it to just be, like, pleasant to watch, easy to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you're playing with very easily grasped tropes. Mm-hmm. You've got the good guy with the blue lightsaber. You've got the bad guy all blacked out with the red lightsaber. And if you know nothing about Star Wars, you know what a Jedi and a Sith Lord is.
Yeah, you know good and bad. Yeah.
I know tons of people, never seen a movie, but they know what a Jedi is. They know who Darth Vader is.
Right.
So when you see Starkiller, even if you have no understanding of Star Wars, you're probably going to look at that guy and say, oh, that's Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
You're very wrong, but you've got
idea.
the idea.
He's a bad guy.
You've got the idea. And they're going to fight. And the bad guy's going to, do what he does, and the good guy's going to do what he does. And people are going to have a good time because it's lightsabers, and there's explosions, and there's lasers, and there's cool costumes, and aliens, and all the things that makes a Star Wars film.
Which I think is actually, if we don't mind pivoting, like, a really good thing that I think people would be interested in hearing is, like, we don't have budget. You know what I mean? Like, we had such a limited budget, and you're doing a Star Wars film. And I remember that was one of my biggest concerns when you brought the foretelling to me, and then when you brought KESTIS to me and you're like, I want to make it even bigger. And I was like, cool. Do we have money? You were like,
Ow.
Nope. And I was like, so we got to make this bigger without more money. Yeah. But like, just I don't know how much you want to get into, like, just how inventive and how clever we had to be with, like, we shot it in Florida. Mm-hmm. And, like, for those who have been to Florida, Florida's pretty one note, you know? Yeah. It's flat and beach, and, like, that's kind of what we got. We don't have mountains and then a valley and then a river, and, like, it's beach. And so I was really impressed as you started pitching me the idea and more of the locations, where I was like, man, like, we go to how many planets?
There are, well, let me think here.
Right?
We go to, we start the movie on Korriban, then we go to Boss Pity, then we go to Kyrimerit, and then we go to another planet that I will not talk about.
Exactly. So, like,
4.
Shooting 4 planets in Florida, like...
And they all look like their own planet.
And they do. And I think that's going to be something, like, that will be fun to have viewers, like, I guess, like, take note of as they watch it, is just, like, how, even, like, looking at, like, some of the props that we have, like, out here that we've used, like, they look great. And, and that is a big shout out to Nick.
Yeah, I mean, like, amateur filmmakers have to get creative. Yeah. Like, that's just the way it is. And, I mean, I also, on top of that, I do think that there is this, this idea of, like, the more professional you get, whatever that means, the more official things have to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that has to be true all the time. Why can't you go to Goodwill and buy some sort of pelt and skirt and thing and convert it into the necessary costume element? Why can't you shoot a quick scene in someone's backyard and do a little thing here and there to make it look like it? I think ultimately that's where real creativity comes from, is taking what you've got and working with it. But with these bigger movies, it's like, oh, well, we don't have to think because we have $200 million to work with.
And it's fun too, like, the movie, like, KESTIS feels big. It really does when you watch it. And, like, I feel like when I sit back and look at it, I'm like, man, we had, like, even with the background included, we didn't have a huge cast. And, like, multiple scenes just feel so filled with life and filled with action and, like, all this stuff. And, like, part of that is due to our really good actors. Part of that's due to Dan, our cinematographer, who did a really good job, like, creating angles that just make things look more busy and more full, like, just a lot of different elements go into that. But I think that's what I'm most proud of, is it's like you look back at, like, what we had to work with and what we made, and I really feel like we could not have done any better. Like, I feel like we took what we had to our fullest potential in like every aspect of actors, of props, of costume, of locations, and, like, using minimal special effects.
I can confirm that too, because there were areas where we realized, oh, this particular thing isn't possible. Like, I don't want to talk too much about deleted scenes yet.
Yeah.
We'll probably wait till after the movie, because I don't want to talk about them and people will be like, oh, that should have been in the movie. But basically, we cut a couple of sequences from our movie just because it wasn't possible. We thought they were at the time, and as time showed,
and we don't want half-baked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of those things where you don't want a sequence that just because the whole movie we didn't want that feeling. And
and they also serve as distractions.
Yeah.
They'll completely take you out of
it.
the
Yeah,
moment.
and we all agreed that like we won't put in a cool sequence that has this cool stuff if it looks half baked. Like
Right.
we wanted, want it to look solid.
Yeah. I think another thing that kind of like, to go back to the accessibility of like the characters in this movie, I think part of it is like Respawn and Lucasfilm just did such a good job making the characters in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor accessible for everyone, in the sense of like they are very relatable characters. And so I think they work really well on kind of a, I don't want to say downgraded, but like on a fan film level, they work because, Marin is just a human with makeup. Cal is just a little ginger boy who likes ponchos. The only one that isn't is that guy, BD1. But even then, I think we did a pretty good job with him.
I mean, BD looks great. I mean, I'm very proud of my team. At this point, we in total we had about 8 guys working nonstop over the course of the last 5 months or so, and I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many shots in our film have visual effects in it, but it is a lot. It's probably like close to
Star Wars. Every lightsaber, every blast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't get around it.
I mean, you could look at Star Wars as a period piece because everything has to look accurate to that place in time. And so I don't know how these shows like Peaky Blinders, how they managed to do a period piece for multiple seasons for like, what is it,
I
10,
think about
12
that
episodes.
all the time.
It is so impressive.
Yeah.
And it's so much work because you have to be on top of everything. It's like, well, you can't write it this way because that language isn't invented until this happens in that movie.
And your locations become so limited when you have to shoot within a period.
Yeah.
And then like you think of everything and it's like every vehicle and like just like every shoe, every sock, like everything has to be in the period or it takes the audience out of it.
Yeah.
And like
Star Wars
that's really
fans,
how Star
Starbucks
Wars
and Game of Thrones.
yeah.
And Star Wars fans, they catch those things really, and they're very passionate, and they're able to pick out those details. And if they see something in Arabish, they will decipher it. They will do it.
Yeah.
And I showed Wes. I don't know if I showed you, but there's some moments, there's some certain shots throughout the movie where I sneak some Arabish in there, and it's got some really funny messages in there. So for some of you eagle-eyed fans, you guys have fun with that. And there was a conversation that me and you had like a week or so ago, and there's only one type of audience that goes on YouTube and watches fan films, and they are Star Wars sweaties. They like 2 things. They like Darth Revan, and they like Clone Troopers. And it's an overgeneralization, but the idea is like they know Star Wars lore. Like they live and breathe for that stuff. It's not necessarily for general audiences. It's for Star Wars fans. And so with that, there comes this sort of expectation and
pressure.
A little bit of pressure. But I think at the same time, most people go into watching fan films with a certain expectation, where it's like it's not like they're expecting something as great as something Hollywood produced. They're expecting, a bunch of fans in their backyard making a fan film, which on one hand is an advantage for us because I know that we're capable for more. And I think we did that with the foretelling on its own. And so being able to come back and really flex with something as big as KESTIS, I think fans are going to be really surprised, and hopefully the hope is that the production value is big enough for them to sort of ignore the fact that it's a fan film and just watch it for the story.
Yeah.
So
I also think too, like the whole reason this is possible for us to make it is because of Star Wars fans, and like because of how obsessed they are with Star Wars, and like in all the best ways. Like the amount of volunteers we had come onto this project with their talent, with what like their props or whatever they had. We had like some Mandalorians come on with us, and like just so much was brought to us just purely because people love Star Wars.
You couldn't have done that with an original story idea.
Honestly, there are very few franchises. I would argue that Star Wars is really the biggest one that you can get that kind of a reaction to. Like when people found out there was a fan film being made in Bradenton, like people just got so excited, and we had people just like jumping on literally for volunteer, and like even friends of mine who work professionally in the industry and like they had other work going on at this time, and they were so excited to just work on a Star Wars thing, and they they were so much like, I'll work with you guys, whatever we can do. I want to make something Star Wars. I think
it's because a lot of filmmakers started that work because they were inspired by Star Wars.
I think Star Wars is huge. I mean, my teacher who taught me everything I know, he'll tell you the story. He sat down and he saw Star Wars and he was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to make these, and I have definitely heard a lot of those stories, but I think that is so beautiful. I think that is so cool that, we're making something for those fans, but it's also made because we had those fans help us out.
The amount of friendships we've made in the process, and I think the way we've all grown in the process of making these films, the things we were able to accomplish before and after. Like, I think a lot of us could say, after we made that Star Wars film, this and this and this happened, and I think that's really great.
I mean, we never would have met if, me and you were friends, one, because of Star Wars. It started with a conversation about the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, we're friends. We are all friends because of Star Wars. Honestly, though,
right?
We talked for the first time because I'm pretty sure you're wearing a Star Wars shirt, and I was really nervous in college. Just was like my first class in person. I was like, a Star Wars shirt, I can talk to them. You know what I mean? I was like, this person, I can talk to them. They're cool or whatever. And then I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Star Wars. I mean, we made the foretelling.
Also, the foretelling is the main thing that kind of was like, all right, I should just do everything Cal Kestis. And that's where this YouTube channel came from, this podcast, that all that stuff. It's because Star Wars fans inspire other Star Wars fans.
And, we are all genuine friends in, like, real life. We hang out a lot, and, like, that's my favorite thing. To be cheesy, that's my favorite thing I got out of this. But, like, that's really fun. And I also think it's cool to see, like, from the foretelling to Kestis, how many people stuck around. And even those who couldn't work on the project, like, the amount of support that they gave to the project, whether it was text messages and just, like, checking up on it. But, like,
we had people come back to work on it and do different things than previously. Like, we had Caleb Allen, who helped with a lot
Shout
of
out
the...
to Caleb.
Yeah,
love him.
Great guy.
So good.
He helped out with a lot of the proper footwork during the choreographing, and he helped with the audio, and he worked the boom mic while we were on set.
Yeah, so many little things just to help us,
And then for Kestis, we actually wrote a part for him. And that was exciting to do.
Same with Nick.
Dude, he knocked it out of the park. And Nick as well. I mean, it's the story of Nick's involvement with these films is so cool to me.
It's its own podcast on its own, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Because when we were working on, we were halfway through filming the foretelling, and I was on Instagram. I saw this guy's cool cosplay, and I was like, oh, that's really sick. And I noticed, like, because when people post, sometimes, like, their location is attached.
Right.
And it said, like, Sarasota, Florida. I'm like, holy crap, this guy's, like, in the area. And so I just reached out to him on a whim. I was like, hey, we're filming a Star Wars fan film tomorrow evening.
So crazy.
Just, out of curiosity, would you be down to show up and just shoot a quick thing for us? We think your costume's dope. And he's like, dude, of course, I'll do it. Who knew that moment would have sparked an entire sequel?
Right.
Where the whole film
he's a huge role.
It's
literally a role in the film, but he did, he did
does all the costuming and
all the props, like, but yeah, I feel like it was fun because, like, obviously the core team, like, all three of us stayed from the foretelling to Kestis, but then along with that, I really do feel like, the biggest thing that changed was our cinematographers, but, like, other than that, and that was because he was getting married. Like, he wanted to do the project, and he just wasn't able to.
People getting married gets in the way.
Congratulations,
oh my gosh,
but
bro.
like,
get your priorities straight.
But we really had, like, so many people who, like you said, just helped in such small roles on the foretelling.
Yeah.
When they heard that we were doing something again and bigger and better, they were like, "How can I help? How can I get on? How can I support you guys?" And that's a big testament. Like, that's super cool. And that's also fun. I think it's always fun when you get to keep your team. You know what I mean? You get to, like, you get to keep.
That's what I've That's what I started doing ever since I moved here, was like, the more films I make, the more networks. I want to build relationships and keep them with me as long as possible.
Well, I remember the first time I really met you, we were sitting in a college class. It was like the first day of class, and we're all just like sitting because we're there early, right? And you just turn around in the chair in front of everyone, and you're like, I want to know who's serious about film. And like raise your hand. And like 2 of us raised our hand out of the class of like 25 kids. But I remember you said that, and I was just like, who is this guy? Like, asking such a
mysterious
bold...
man?
But I was like, that's such a bold question to ask your first day of a film class.
Yeah.
And then, like, 2 of us raised our hand, and you got our contacts, and, like, and that was it. And that's how you started.
Well, it's so funny because that moment, like, even though, like, I mean, in that sort of situation, like, if you're really bold about it, you're going to raise your hand. But... like, that would ultimately prove true later down the road, was like, you could tell who was serious.
No, but that's my point, is like,
wasn't.
You didn't want to waste your time. You wanted to collab with other filmmakers and make something really great. And like, you were serious about that from the start, and I respected that. And it made that point of like, when you first approached me, even for the smaller stuff before Foretelling, just like the little things, I was like, I still didn't know you very well, but I was like, I don't really know this guy very well, but I know he's serious about what he wants to do, and I know he's driven. And I know he has a vision, and it's like, at the end of the day, what more do you look for? Mm-hmm. Like, someone who knows what they want and what they're going to do.
Like-minded people getting together and telling stories.
Yeah. Like, let's try and help him out. And then I started helping him out, and I was like, oh, this guy's cool. Like, I can be friends with him. And then grew from there. But
yeah,
I do remember that's how it started. You were looking for other dedicated filmmakers, not wasting your time.
Do not waste Zach's time.
Don't do it. My time is valuable.
He's like, speaking of, actually.
No, my college experience was weird. I mean, you could probably say the same, but it was just like, first of all, education is gross to me. I don't like it.
That's a hot take.
Do not like it. And I kind of went into. And it was a community college, I should preface.
Yeah.
Also. So the expectations are already
I was going to say, it was
low.
the most, like, tropey community college. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, everything you hear about community colleges
not nearly as many paintball wars
college.
as I wanted there to be.
Right, that was, or pillow forts. Disappointing.
Yeah, pillow forts and all that. Yeah, community kind of spoiled me on my perceptions of college life. But, yeah, I had a rough experience with the film side of community college, because I did go in thinking like, oh, all these people are going to be similar minded, and we're all just artists trying to get better, and we all have similar goals. And I didn't realize. Well, what I didn't realize was most of those people were there for credits.
Well, at the end of the day is the movie classes, like the one that we met in, you watched movies in class. Your homework was to go home and watch a movie during the week. And that was about it. Occasionally write a paper. And so,
only good thing about college.
But you think about it, it's like, yeah, who isn't taking that as an elective? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everyone likes watching movies. And so...
and then the few people who were serious about it.
And were taking the other courses.
Some of them were really nice, and then some of them were like, if you haven't seen this movie, you're not a real filmmaker.
It was like pretentious. It was like weirdly pretentious for a community college.
Like, oh my gosh.
Like, I was never a part of that, but listening to y'all's stories about it, like Zach was talking about one time where like Star Wars came up in the conversation and people were hating on how Yoda fights in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
And Zach was like the only guy standing up for Master Yoda.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what a toxic situation.
It was the first time I'd ever experienced something like being bullied for liking Star Wars. Like, I hear stories of like people like our parents' age growing up.
Right.
And at that time, being a nerd was weird. Like, it wasn't cool. So if you were obsessed with Star Wars and you had a Star Wars lunchbox, you were running the risk of getting bullied. Today, I think it's different, where like everybody loves Marvel, everybody loves DC, everybody loves Star Wars. They're all going to talk about this stuff because it's commercial now. And I assumed everybody going to film school would like to talk about Star Wars. And then come to find out, dude, I was getting trashed, bro.
It was too mainstream. You gotta be into the
trashed for
the other world
the French filmmaking.
Yeah, literally like the foreign French filmmaking.
Who's your favorite underground French amateur short film? Like, shut the heck up, bro. Give me some Yoda fighting Dooku all day. That's my happy place.
I do think though, like, go ahead.
The only French movie I know is Ratatouille. Is that French? I don't know. That's all I got.
That's a French movie. Right? That's a solid French film right there.
I think I had like the exact opposite approach. I was younger than everybody else when I went to community college, and that was just really intimidating in general. But also I was like, I'm putting my head down, I'm doing my thing. I did not think I was gonna meet anybody like-minded, I guess, or like meet anyone who I was gonna be able to like really get along with. And so I was, for once in my life, very quiet. I didn't talk to anyone. I stayed in my bubble. I didn't talk about anything I liked. Like, I just sat. And so I think you were like the biggest surprise, because as I got to know you and like work with you, I was like, oh man, did I like meet a friend out of community college? Like, you know,
who knew that was possible?
Yeah, and like, and I actually did end up meeting at the end of the day. I met a few friends that like I still keep in touch with, but I don't quite work with them in the same sense that I work with you and like am friends with you. But I think I had the opposite approach. I went into it being like, you know, just get through it, put my head down. This is gonna.
There was this feeling that you almost had to prove yourself, and I think I still carried that on to what I'm doing today. Is like, I'm always feeling like I have to prove myself to somebody. Lately, it's felt more like I have to prove things to myself.
I mean, that's what film is, though. Like, working, you know, I get hired. It's like, I should be able to walk onto set being like, I've earned this job because I got hired for it. So obviously, they know my talent well enough to hire me. Not at all. Literally not at all. Like, I walk into every new set, even a set that I've been on with people I work with all the time, every set, it's like, I gotta prove myself. I gotta prove I can be better. I gotta prove what I can do. And because the reality of the industry is, if you're like, that's what it is.
That's how they separate. I mean, that's how you separate.
That's how you separate. That's how you know. That's how you get hired back. Because it's like, who's.
You can't just ask people, better. Hey, who's legit here?
And like, you know,
if you're legit, raise your hand.
But like, as I talk to friends in the industry and everything like that, it's like, you can tell when people just level out, and it's seen as a negative. And that's terrifying to a degree, to be like, I'm 22 and I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I can't level out. I have to keep climbing. But also, I think at the end of the day, it's a good thing. You know, to challenge yourself to always be doing better.
It's good to have pressure, but I also think, like, at the end of the day,
healthy pressure.
Healthy pressure for sure. And I think at the end of the day, like, this is what we want to do. It's not like, oh, I have to try hard.
In your films, I feel like aren't like that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
your films are very comfortable.
Well, I appreciate that. That's what I try to do. And I think ultimately it's like, I'm going to try hard because I want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I want to make this film because it's something I want to see.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so beautiful about like an indie short film, especially with Star Wars, when all three of us were Star Wars fans growing up, is it's like, you know, I go onto a professional working set, I'd say 90% of the time, being like, okay, how do I prove to my superior, you know, that I'm this, or this, or that I can do this. And then you go onto your set, and I have the exact same level of expectation for myself, but for the reason of like, I love these people and I love this project, I want to give them my very best. It's not about proving. I never feel like I have to like prove something to your set or to anyone on your set of like, let me show them what I can do. It's always just like, it's just this like really beautiful feeling of like, we are all so passionate about what we're making. We all love this project, this story, and these people. So like, we're all giving it our best. And I think that is obviously a much healthier, much more pleasant environment to work in. And
it's so apparent too, like, I've never made a movie, but I've made a lot of YouTube videos, and I think they kind of go along the same vein in different ways. You can totally tell when someone does not want to be in front of the camera. You can totally tell when someone is just forcing themselves to do it because they like the idea of being a YouTuber.
And that's what I was afraid of when I first met you, you know, because I didn't know you. And I was like, is this guy... is he just going to kind of go up there and force a Cal Westis? You know, kind of. But then, like Zach said, you were so passionate about the character and about Star Wars that it just came through and you're talented. And so it mixed really well to, like, create a good Cal Westis. But, not to cut you off, but carry on.
I was just saying that, like, in order to be good on camera, I'm not an expert in this, but I think it just requires genuineness.
Yeah.
Do you want to be there? Do you want to be a part of this? Do you want to make this?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then you should be fine.
No, and that carries... I think in all my like professional working projects, there is one project that like everybody on that project loved our story, from actors to PAs. Like, we all were just really supportive of that story. And that project was brutal. It was really difficult. And we had so many things going on that should have made that project so not fun to work on. And it was like 6-7 weeks long. It was really long. But it kind of had this feeling of like KESTIS, where like, if people are genuine and people really want to be there, you get a good result, and audiences can feel that. And I think they'll feel that in KESTIS.
The passion over the paycheck always yields better results.
What paycheck?
Yeah, exactly. There was no paycheck. You have no choice but to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, I joke because there are very few people that actually had paychecks during the production of KESTIS. But
which I think is another huge, like, that's
yeah,
really crazy.
Yeah.
90% of the cast and crew were there voluntarily.
And it was like, what, a week of shooting.
Yeah.
It was
a week
the
of
foretelling was like, what, 2-3 days? Like, I think 2.5 days.
And they were all split up.
Yep.
Mostly
very
on Friday
split up.
nights.
Yeah. And so, it was a lot easier to get volunteers because you're not taking really important time. This was like, if you're working on it, you need to ask off work for this week. We need your full week.
People
know what I mean?
were sacrificing.
Yeah.
To
People
make this thing
sacrificed paychecks to make our movie where they didn't receive a paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, we did our best to take care of them. We fed them. We paid for their gas expenses. So all they had to do was show up and have fun. That was all they had to do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I was like, I feel a little bit better because, man, if it was one of those situations where it's like, hey, we need you here, we can't feed you or pay for your gas, but we really need you to be here and like give us your best.
And we've done those.
Yeah,
We have all three worked on those, and
not fun.
It's not good. And you can feel it in the movie. You can feel it on set.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just cringe all around. Yeah. Well, bringing things back to KESTIS, I kind of want to talk about like the main thing of the movie, and that's probably the fight between Cal and Starkiller. And I kind of want to break that down for people without giving away any spoilers, but just kind of like what they can expect. So.
Yeah. Well, I think regardless of how people view the movie, what I can say is they can expect a lot of parallels between the foretelling and KESTIS. There's a lot of things that happen, certain lines that are said, certain characters and their attitudes. It's designed to sort of be a dyad. The foretelling and KESTIS are supposed to work together as a duo, which is why I don't plan on ever making a third one or completing the trilogy, because they work so well as a duo. And down to the way we choreographed the fight, Starkiller, for the Force Unleashed at least, he was designed to be a sort of, if Luke Skywalker turned to the dark side, what would he have been like? So we took that and ran with it. And so the lightsaber duel is designed to appear like the culmination of their art forms. So Galen Merrick fights like Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, because we're taking choreographed moments from The Mandalorian Season 2 and from the Book of Boba Fett, where Luke does his lightsaber stuff. We took inspiration from those sequences and incorporated them into the way Galen Merrick fights, so that he looks like Luke Skywalker when he's fighting Cal Kestis. And in the same way, we had to step up Cal's approach to fighting, because he couldn't fight the same way that he did in the foretelling, but he couldn't quite be as skilled as he is in Survivor. So it was really fun finding that balance. How do these people fight? They're not going to fight like prequel Jedi, but they're not going to fight like Jedi from the original trilogy either. There's going to be sort of this middle ground between the two. And I was especially inspired by the Samurai trilogy. They're not Kurosawa. I'm blanking on the name of the director right now, but it's led by Toshiro Mifune, which he stars in a lot of samurai films. And the whole concept of this trilogy is you're watching this guy go from being just sort of this rugrat to a samurai. And the finale of this trilogy is this really beautiful sword fight on a beach at sunset.
Because that's what you showed me. It was one of the first things
and
you showed me.
that was one of the driving sources of inspiration for KESTIS was I want these sort of reflections of each other to have this fight at a beach where there's rocks and the waves are crashing and it's all sort of chaotic and loud
And because Florida.
and because Florida works out because it's Florida. And so there's just I think it looks really beautiful, and I can't wait for our colorists to go in and play with the sunset and the purples and the oranges and I'm really excited to see how that comes together.
I think as well, like, you know, on a Star Wars set, there are wires, there are safety measures, you know what I mean? Like, it's fake, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We don't have budget, so we don't have any of that. And I remember back to the foretelling, Zach invited me to a choreography session so I could see how what you guys are doing and, like, picture it. And I brought my little brother, who was, I think, 4 at the time, and he had just started watching Star Wars and he was getting into it. And you guys did the choreography in front of us. And he thought you were a real Jedi. And I remember he went, I forget if he went up to you or if he talked to me after, but he was convinced for the longest time you guys were Jedi because you guys throw yourself across the room, you launch yourself into the air, and, like, you guys make it look so realistic. And I remember being so impressed by that when I first watched you guys, because I was like, these guys don't have wires? Like, if he does this, Wes just launches backwards into what, and then, like, you know, when you're bringing up KESTIS and you're like, yes, we're going to do it on a rocky beach. I'm like, you're going to what? It's like... I'm going to have claws for hands. And you're wearing a helmet.
I'm going to strangle him.
Yeah, you're wearing a helmet and you can't see out of the helmet fantastically, and just, like, all these elements. And I was just like, okay, like,
we're in the backyard. We've done this a million times.
Yeah, and they're, you know, and
that's another part of it, too, is, like, me and Zach, well before we made the foretelling, in the building we're in right now, there is a giant room that we sword fight in.
Yeah, because that's where
we used to do it more, but on a regular basis.
That was our spare time thing.
Yeah, we would go down there and we would freaking sword fight with plastic lightsabers. And so I think a lot of that was like, me and Zach are already very comfortable with that. We trust each other in that, and, like, there's been a couple, there's been some bloody knuckles, but that's part of the hobby there.
Did something happen on KESTIS? Didn't he?
Yeah, there's a there's a moment where so we're running through our number, and there's, like, a set of rocks behind us, and Wes trips, falls back, and the crotch to his costume. This is while we're filming, so there is a shot.
Oh well, that's
of
a
this.
whole. That's a whole other.
There is footage of this happening,
element.
but he falls onto the rocks, doesn't get hurt. He was fine.
Yep.
His pants definitely weren't, though, because they just split.
Right down the middle.
But the pivotal part of this is Wes didn't fix it. And I will not forget, I don't even remember what day of shooting it was, but we had already shot a couple days. Because this was, like, one of our last days of filming. And they're shooting the scene, and Wes is just doing a really great Jedi pose, right? He's holding the lightsaber, he's fighting, but his legs are very split. And we go to, like, watch it after, you know, like, on the camera real quick to see how that take was. And I look and I'm like,
Wesley's got plaid on today.
Yeah, and I was like, Wesley, I was like, are those your boxers? And then he goes, oh yeah, my pants are ripped. And I was like, we've been shooting for a week. And
nobody noticed.
In my defense, part of it was we were shooting for a week. We didn't have a professional seamstress on
Taylor
set.
probably could have figured something out.
I brought it to my grandma's house, and she did the best patch-up job that she could.
Bless her heart.
And honestly,
bless her heart.
The funniest thing was, though, then when Zach made the rough cut and I watched it for the first time, I watched Wesley's crotch because I was like, I gotta make sure he's not, like, you're not seeing.
And George Lucas explicitly said there's no underwear in space. We would be making
it'd be a huge problem. But I just remember, like, that ended up being
no matter what, there was a hole, all right? There was a hole. No matter how you slice it. So for you eagle-eyed fans, there are some shots where there's a tear in his crotch. Thankfully, our colorist is going to be contrasting the colors enough to where it's really difficult. You have to be really, like, obsessed with Wesley's crotch.
I thought, though...
And, like, watching it the entire time.
You dirty creeps.
You almost hurt Wes.
I
thought.
Oh, there was a time. So when
that's what I was referring to. For the record, I was referring to not the crotch thing. I was.
I only remember that.
There was a time when you as Starkiller were on top of me and doing the choking sequence.
That was it. Yes.
And I kind of like was actually getting choked for a bit, but I was like, oh well, it'll look good. And
that's That's right.
Do it
And
for
you
the fun.
finally.
And so I'm sitting there like, "Ugh." And then there was a time where I actually like almost threw up because it was hitting my gag reflex. And this is probably like, there's probably
This
a
has to be an
take of this
outtake.
as
No,
well.
because that's
There
how I
is.
knew about it. Because he showed me the take or something. I remember you guys showed me that. Because that's I remember. Because y'all are trying to carry on the scene, and Wes just also goes.
Just in the middle, I'm like, "Ugh."
And like Zach like shoots off because he thought you were gonna throw up. That's what I was afraid.
Yeah.
But hey, if that's the only injury, near injury we've had,
No, it was a safe movie.
yeah. I mean, in the
Yes.
foretelling, you threw yourself down that hill.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I mean, throwing myself down that hill kind of sucked
Yeah, that was
because
not
we
fun.
didn't get it in one take.
No,
We-
you did that. You did it a lot. Low-key, you did that like 4 because wasn't it drone?
No, there was a drone there, but
Oh, no, so you were
that
walking.
specific
That's
shot
right.
was kind of
no,
like
that one. Yeah, I just remember you had to do it a lot, and I remember just being like,
You had to do
"Ugh."
it at least twice because
At least
there's the
twice.
shot, there's the wide of him falling.
I
That
think
was
it
like a
yeah.
profile, and then the other one was a low angle of him going down.
I
some of
probably
it.
did it anywhere from like 4 to 8 times
Yeah.
that day.
Probably.
I do think though, an outtake video would be very funny because like we said, all the three of us are very good friends. A lot of the people that worked with us on the project are either friends of all three of ours or like multiple of us, and like just like the vibes on the
Yeah.
set were so good. And I do think there are so many funny outtakes, and just like maybe once it's out we can like talk more about set stories, or we can more openly talk about
Yeah.
stuff, because it was just super fun. It was so fun to work on. A lot of fun moments. Wes getting gagged on the beach, or when
Fun for everyone else but me.
just like when you tripped. I don't know, so many funny trying to
Yeah.
run up the cliff on the beach, the like
Ugh.
2-foot little cliff.
Dude.
Man. Anyways,
Yeah, I mean, sand, like, just going to the beach on a regular day.
do you hate sand? Is it
I hate
coarse
sand.
and
Dude, it's coarse,
It's coarse
it's
and
rough.
rough.
It got everywhere.
everywhere.
Especially when there's a hole in your crotch. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, and that's another thing to talk about, the sunburns.
Oh,
Oh my
yes.
goodness. We preface, what month did we shoot this in? Was it May?
March.
March.
Started
Okay.
March.
Thank you. And it was surprisingly kind of nice out our first day. It was cooler out, so we were at the beach.
Very
And
windy.
when it's cold and windy, you don't think to put on sunscreen. But the reality is the sun is still there.
Well, you're giving Wes too
Okay,
much.
no, I'm
Yeah,
not done,
everyone
I'm not
puts
done, I'm
sunscreen
not
on
done.
except
Yes.
for the ginger, the most susceptible
I was
to
gonna
the sun's
say, I was
rays.
gonna start being nice, but then be like, but Wesley was an idiot and did not put on sunscreen. But the reality is,
That's me.
I think I only put it on once, but we looked back later, the UV index that week was off the charts.
Yeah.
So our first day of filming, we film and we go to Chick-fil-A that night. And we're like looking, like sunburns develop over time. And
Throughout the day, it was sort of like,
oh, he's got a little pink, but they're running around, they're fighting.
50 Shades of Red kind of a situation. you
No,
know?
but we get to Chick-fil-A and we walk in the door, and the Chick-fil-A employees, they gasped when they saw Wesley. And it was in that moment when I looked at Wes now inside and lights and everything, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, we're shooting a full week. Needless to say, I think the sunburn was the hardest part. It was painful, kind of wore everyone down for those first, for that next day.
Yeah.
We tried to put foundation on Wes's face, nothing
Yeah.
helped.
It actually turned out
It worked.
pretty well. I mean,
Well, the first time I looked like C-3PO, I was very golden. I was
We should
very
release
golden.
that picture at some point, because we didn't have, it just, yeah.
Yeah.
I
there
was
wasn't much we
so
could
nervous.
do. Oh, I do remember, Zach, I really feel like I have not seen you that level of mad, because you were
I mean,
silent.
I kept it pretty cool, but I was very
You did keep it cool, but then
very tense.
yeah, you just you were just extra quiet, and then you talked to me that, and you're like, I cannot believe he did that, and I was like, yep.
Again.
But looking back, I'm editing. I mean, I've been editing this thing for months now, and you really can't tell.
It works, yeah.
You really can't tell he's blood red
Fried.
underneath.
Yeah.
He's just a fried leprechaun underneath
It just
We
was
did
painful.
open this podcast with talking about how much everyone has grown. So,
Wes puts on sunscreen
yes,
now.
I put on sunscreen now when
We're
I'm
so
on
proud of you.
sets.
It's great.
It's not easy.
Good job, Lil Pasty.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up the episode. Thank you so much for you guys.
Thanks for letting
It
us
was
on.
super fun, yeah.
Well,
It's about time.
yeah, y'all are freaking Star Wars family. So anytime y'all want to come back, we can maybe do another episode post KESTIS being out, talk about our favorite moments with spoilers included.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for watching and listening.
We want to make sure that you're aware that that our film that we've been talking about for the last hour comes
That's
out
true.
on January 30th on YouTube. It's
Growth.
free. It's a blast. And yeah, keep your eyes open, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.